Hello everyone. Today I will tell you a story titled The Cat Who Loved to Stand on Shoulders. The story begins as follows. It all started one sunny afternoon when I was sitting at my desk, attempting to work, when I felt a sudden weight on my shoulder. At first, I thought it was a gust of wind or perhaps a misplaced object, but when I turned my head, I was met with the sight of my mischievous tabby cat, Whiskers, perched proudly on my shoulder like a furry pirate. Whiskers had always been an inquisitive and playful cat. But this was new. His green eyes glinted with mischief as he stared at me from his lofty position, his little paws gently gripping my shoulder like he was some kind of professional mountaineer. I was so startled that I froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. My heart skipped a beat. What was he thinking? He had never shown any inclination to climb up to such heights before. "Whiskers," I said, half laughing, half sputtering in confusion. "What are you doing up there?" He responded by giving me a very unimpressed look, followed by a little tail flick, as if to say, "Why are you questioning my obvious brilliance?" I gingerly reached up and stroked his head, expecting him to jump off, or at least give me a break from the strange new behavior. But no, Whiskers had other plans. Instead of jumping down, he made himself comfortable, curling up into a ball right on my shoulder, his paws tucking underneath him as he laid down for a nap. And there I was, sitting at my desk with a cat on my shoulder, wondering how in the world this had become my reality. As I tried to continue my work, I realized that every time I moved, Whiskers would adjust his position to keep his balance, making things even more awkward. It was as though he had claimed me as his personal perch and expected me to carry on with my life as if nothing unusual was happening. After a while, I gave up on the idea of productivity. I stood up slowly, cautiously, trying to move around the room while my furry friend remained steadfast on my shoulder. The whole thing was so absurd that I found myself laughing uncontrollably. Every time I turned a corner or reached for something on a shelf, Whiskers would stretch his little paws, ensuring he had a firm grip. It was official. My cat was now a living accessory. As days turned into weeks, Whiskers seemed to take a liking to his new spot. It wasn't just a random occurrence anymore. No, this had become a daily ritual. I couldn't so much as get up to grab a cup of coffee without Whiskers climbing up my leg like a furry ladder and making his way onto my shoulder. At first, I tried to discourage him. "No, Whiskers, this is not a cat highway," I would say, gently prying him off my shoulder and placing him back on the ground. But the moment I turned my back, he would scamper back up faster than I could react. It was almost as if he had learned the art of shoulder surfing to perfection. One evening, I was walking around the living room, trying to tidy up. I bent down to pick up a book, and sure enough, Whiskers, always the opportunist, seized the moment. He jumped up from the floor and landed squarely on my back, causing me to stumble a little. At that precise moment, I made the mistake of letting out a little shriek. "Whiskers, not again!" He responded with an unamused meow and a quick, calculated move to get back onto my shoulder. Once there, he settled in, clearly expecting to be carried around the house like some sort of regal feline prince. By now, I had accepted that this was my new life. I became a sort of cat wearable. It wasn't unusual for friends or family to stop by and find me walking around the house with Whiskers perched on my shoulder, looking quite pleased with himself, like a proud parrot. The oddity of the situation was never lost on me, but Whiskers seemed entirely unbothered by the spectacle. After all, this was his kingdom, and I was merely his humble steed. There were moments when I'd be cooking dinner, and I'd turn around to find Whiskers' head peeking over my shoulder, trying to get a closer look at the action. I had to be extra careful while chopping vegetables, as Whiskers was known to try and snatch a taste from whatever I was preparing. One time, I was making a salad, and as I reached for the cucumber, Whiskers decided it was a good time to lunge at my hand, thinking I was offering him a snack. Fortunately, his aim was slightly off, and he ended up licking my wrist instead. Still, it was an awkward moment. "Really, Whiskers?" I muttered, wiping my wrist. "You can't wait until I'm done cooking?" He responded with a quick flick of his tail, looking incredibly pleased with himself. To him, it was all part of the adventure. As time went on, Whiskers' shoulder obsession only grew stronger. It wasn't just something he did during the day. It was an all-the-time thing. I would wake up to find him waiting by my bed, ready to make his morning climb as soon as I sat up. On weekends, if I tried to relax on the couch, Whiskers would appear like clockwork, demanding to be lifted up and carried around. One fateful Saturday, I decided I had had enough. I was determined to stop this madness and reclaim my personal space. As I sat on the couch, I felt his little paws creeping up my legs, and I steeled myself for the inevitable. He reached my shoulder, but this time, I wasn't going to let it happen. I grabbed him mid-climb and placed him back on the floor. "No more shoulder rides, Whiskers," I declared with the firmest tone I could muster. Whiskers stared at me, his eyes narrowing slightly as if to challenge my authority. He sat there for a moment, as though contemplating his next move. And then, without missing a beat, he marched straight toward the back of the couch and leapt up to perch on the top of it, still within arm's reach of my shoulder, of course. I couldn't help but laugh. The little troublemaker was relentless. There was no stopping him. With a resigned sigh, I shook my head. "Fine," I said. "You win, Whiskers. You're the boss." And so, the cycle continued. Whiskers would climb onto my shoulder at any given moment, and I would give up trying to stop him. It wasn't even a question anymore. My cat, my tabby with a penchant for shoulders, had claimed his throne, and I, for better or worse, was his loyal subject. In the end, I had to admit something. As strange as it was, I had grown rather fond of the whole situation. There was something undeniably special about having such an affectionate companion who wanted nothing more than to be close to me. Literally, right next to me on my shoulder. Whiskers may have been a cat with an odd obsession, but he had certainly found a way to make every day just a little bit more interesting. And so, we carried on me my tabby cat and his unwavering love for standing on my shoulders.